The United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world, and the state of Oklahoma has the highest incarceration of any state in the United States. Yeah. There's a new program out there that aims to help that population by teaching them how to code. Priscilla Chan is the wife of Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg and the founder of the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Her group is specifically aiming to help female inmates.
In an exclusive interview for CBS This Morning, Dr. Chan takes CBS This Morning co-host Norah O'Donnell inside a medium security prison in McLeod, Oklahoma.
When you think about rehabilitation or teaching prisoners, I think coding is really the last thing in a lot of people's minds. Why coding?
I was just talking to a woman in the classroom, and she's been incarcerated for 17 years, and she is ready to return to her community and wants to contribute. And she knows that the industry and the world has moved forward, and we need to be giving people who are incarcerated the cutting edge skills.
I was computer illiterate completely. Yeah.
Priscilla Chan is helping to bring those cutting edge skills to 18 women at Mabel Bassett Correctional Center. It's the largest female prison in Oklahoma with over 1,200 inmates, 85% of whom are mothers.
Use HTML.
Through the Last Mile program, these women will learn computer coding languages like HTML,
.html,
and JavaScript.
Text edit, preferences.
How do you teach coding when there's no internet connection at these prisons?
It's phenomenal what they're able to achieve, but I think it just speaks to how dedicated they are to actually learning the skills.
Do you really think that tech companies will want to hire felons?
I think they want to hire people who are motivated and have the right skills, and so yes, I do.
She realized technology could help unlock opportunities for others when she and her husband, Mark Zuckerberg, visited the Last Mile's coding program at San Quentin Prison in 2015.
70% of individuals who are incarcerated will come back. But if you give vocational training, it goes down to 30%. In the Last Mile program, it is 0%.
Inside the Oklahoma prison, we met Taquiana Culver, who dropped out of school at age 13, had her first child at 15, and was in prison by the age of 34. In the dozen years she has spent behind bars, she's gotten her GED and is now a college senior majoring in business. She says she has a 3.9 GPA.
How much longer will you be here?
2.5 more years.
So you're almost there.
I'm almost there.
Are you scared when you think about what you're going to do when you get out of here?
I am. Not so terrified that I can't think clearly. I always keep in the forefront not wanting to make the same mistake that brought me here. So,
or the mistakes that got you here?
Yeah.
What happened?
Literally, wrong place, wrong time, wrong people. I was separated from my husband, was going through some things, and I got involved with another guy that was not the right type of guy, and drugs, drinking, and I was at a place where I shouldn't have been with him, and someone ended up dying, and I mean, thank God it wasn't by my hands, but I was still there. And
you were convicted of second-degree murder.
I was convicted of second-degree murder.
What do you want people to know about that?
I want people to know that it's time to stop defining each individual with the mistakes that they make. Because if you are taught better, you do better, and a mistake does not make you a monster. We are worth redemption, and we can be redeemed. We can redeem ourselves.
If Taquiana graduates, she will join the nearly 500 inmates across 4 states who have completed the year-long course to become software engineers.
There are so many jobs that need to be filled today, and so I think there's an incredible appetite for people with the right training to do the right job. 1 in 2 individuals have a family member or someone in their lives that is involved in our prison system.
What would you say to those who say that someone who's been convicted of second-degree murder does not deserve a second chance? Yeah. She deserves to be in prison.
I think we have to be aware that all of those women in the classroom and everyone who leaves prison has served their time. Each one of those women is a mother, is a family member, and as Brian Stevenson says, more than the worst thing that they've ever done.
Okay. All right, so let's have a discussion about women in coding. Let's bring in Connie Guglielmo. She's editor-in-chief of CNET, and she's joining us now. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So what kind of jobs, Connie, will people who are getting this training, what will they be able to do once they get out of prison now that they have these skills?
Well, that's an interesting question. There is a high demand for tech jobs. There are needs for programmers, system architects, designers, all kinds of engineering jobs and computer science and design jobs. You know, the challenge is that there's a women in tech problem right now where sometimes women who do have the criteria for these jobs are not always getting hired. So you have a little bit of a double-edged sword there. You have people who are interested in hiring people with these kinds of backgrounds, but then you have this women in tech problem that Silicon Valley is facing right now.
So some of these inmates, they're not going to have a college education. What does it take to learn coding, and not having a college education, will that have an impact on their ability to make money and do this once they get out of prison?
You know, I would love to say that it wouldn't make a difference, but a few years ago, I did a survey of all of the top tech companies in Silicon Valley to see what they were asking for in their job requirements for some of these tech jobs. And unfortunately, a lot of them do require a college degree. So if you know someone who can bypass that process, a lot of these companies use automated hiring tools where they do an assessment of your resume, you know, using technology to decide whether they even want to interview you or advance you. I will say that it is a good time to raise these issues and to bring these women out and promote what they're doing, because as I say, we're having a PR problem, if you will, in Silicon Valley. So there is a high degree of interest in companies from Facebook and Apple, Microsoft, Google in hiring more women on their teams. The college degree, you know, again, that could stop you in an automated process. But if you can somehow get your resume heard and seen before a group of these hiring committees, then you do have a good chance, because there is an opportunity as we look toward diversification and diversity in tech.
So how common is it for women in the tech industry to have coding jobs, Connie?
Yeah, this is a really interesting point. The New York Times did a big story over the past weekend, which you may have seen. Women who are doing electrical engineering, computer science, mathematics degrees have actually declined in the past few decades, not because of a lack of interest, but there's a couple of issues there. One of them being that the opportunity, once they get these degrees, has kind of stopped. And you have a lot of very smart women who have put in a lot of time in their career and invested in getting these, you know, sometimes advanced degrees, and they're not getting either hired or they're not getting promoted, or in some cases you're seeing that there's not a lot of equal pay. So is there interest in women doing programming jobs? Yes. Are there women doing programming jobs? Absolutely. And it's a very good community of people who talk to each other. But the issues that we're seeing are systemic. And, you know, if you have a very smart person who spent, 10 years investing in their education, and they know they have a highly valued skill, but they're not getting advancement or equal pay at a base, they're going to walk away and either, you know, move into another industry or another career, or perhaps some of them start their own companies or start collectives. We're seeing, in the case of venture capitalists, some of those women becoming venture capitalists and funding women-owned businesses in the technology sector because they're not getting funding.
So we've been talking about coding, but is all the stuff that you listed right there, is that part of the reason why we're actually seeing a decline in women working in just in the general field of computer-related jobs? Which, I mean, reading that, I'm shocked. There's been so much attention, so much sounding the alarm, so much, you know, discussion about STEM and teaching young girls and this and that. And we're seeing women walking away from the computer sector, the technology sector?
Absolutely. I mean, you hit on a really good point. There are actually three issues here. Number one is education. And what we're finding is that women or girls are interested in STEM degrees. They're interested in coding. It's mathematics. And they're not finding the kinds of classes or mentoring among their teachers or even the support of their parents to pursue that. So that's number one. Number two, we're seeing a problem with opportunity, as I say, in the hiring process. There have been a few blind resume studies where, you know, you submit two equally, qualified resumes, and if there's a woman's name on one and a man's name on the other, the woman's name might get bypassed. So that's an opportunity problem. And then the third issue, as I pointed out, is equal pay and advancement. Once you achieve a level of success and you are this very talented and smart person on these mostly male-dominated programming teams or computer science teams, and you're not getting the same level of advancement or pay, then what do you do with that? So 3 big problems that people are trying to tackle, but it's not going to be done overnight.
You know, Connie, it's so interesting. I think a lot of people sometimes assume that the tech industry, because most of it is based out in California and Silicon Valley, tends to be stocked full of people who have liberal attitudes. And when you see the lack of representation, whether it's women or minorities in leadership positions at these technology companies, one walks away with a very different view of actually what happens in the boardroom and in the executive washrooms, which is that for whatever reason, they are not hiring individuals who are diverse and who have these skills. Are we right about that, or what does your reporting tell you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what my reporting and also there's data to support this, and there's also tons of anecdotal evidence. And I will date myself and say I've been a tech reporter here in Silicon Valley for more than 25 years. And when I started as a reporter covering the beginnings of Silicon Valley and the rise of the personal computer, there were tons of women at all stages of companies. Maybe not CEOs, but there were a lot of women who were doing very interesting work. The Mac team that Steve Jobs hired was very diverse. There were a lot of women. And what has happened over the past 2.5, 3 decades is that tech has become a very important part of our economy. A lot of money and power associated with tech. So you can see parallels to what's happened in tech, for instance, to what's happened in the early days of Hollywood. There were a lot of women reporters and screenwriters. And then when Hollywood became a big business at the end of the 20s, early 30s, and Wall Street came in and financiers, and there was a lot of money, and they started hiring men, and those men started hiring other men. You saw some of those early pioneers in that sort of equal level playing field for men and women kind of disappear. And that's what we've seen a little bit in tech. There are lots of women who work in the tech industry. There are lots of smart women who work in the tech industry that can certainly be on boards of directors and can run companies. And there's this myth that you have to have a STEM degree to be a tech entrepreneur, when we're seeing plenty of people who don't have those tech degrees, men, but they're not given that same chance as women. But really, it goes back to money and power. Whenever you get an industry where there's a lot of money and power, which is what tech is, it's a great big part of our economy now. We're talking about $1 billion companies, the most valuable companies on the planet. That power dynamic has shifted, and that's what we've seen. And that, unfortunately, is what that smart category of women who've made it, have invested, put in that time, are finding, that they hit a ceiling. Not because they're not smart, not because their talents are not needed, but because there's a power dynamic at play, and you do have an old boys club there.
That is a really fascinating observation, Connie. I feel like we need to have you on again.
Yes, let's have you on more to talk about this, because it's a really important discussion and one that we want to keep having. Thank you, Connie. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.